Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest is George Wilesmith, who contacted me a few weeks ago. I got a message out of the blue going, "Hi Nick, have you seen this app that I've created? It's all about politics." And as you know, I'm into politics, so I gave it a look and thought, this looks really good. I'll let him talk about it more in a minute, but just briefly, it's an app where you can then track all the politicians who represent you, from the council to your MP to the mayor, all the way up. You put in your postcode, it works out who your politicians are, and then you can see what they're up to, and hopefully it'll lead you to be able to hold them to account more for their time, what they're doing and what they're saying. I think it's a great idea. So first of all, welcome George to the show.
Thanks very much for having me on. When I sent you that email about the app, I'll let you into a secret. I did kind of hope that you might invite me on here. I had it in the back of my mind and you didn't let me down. So thank you.
Well, anybody listening, if you've got a good idea, if you've got a good conversation, a good story, get in contact, because I'm happy to chat with anybody who's got a good story, because it's about getting those stories out there, and especially if you've invented something. So let's get into this app. So first of all, a couple of seconds, what's it called? What does it do? And then we'll get into why you set it up.
The mobile app is called Mapolitic, and we called it Mapolitic because it is obviously political, so the politic, and it's based on mapping data, whereby you mentioned that you could put your postcode in and it will sense who your politicians are. But it's even better than that, if you don't mind me saying so, because you don't even need to put your postcode in. There is a location feature on there. So you don't even need to know the postcode of where you live or where you are. It will just sense where you are. And it will then show you if any of the politicians at any of the layers of government under which you live. So as you mentioned, MP, county council, district council, police and crime commissioner, elected mayor, devolved assembly members, etc. Anyone who's elected at the ballot box to represent the area that you are in, if they have chosen to appear on Mapolitic, and it's completely free for them to do so, they can then have a presence on the site. And by letting the app sense where you are, you will see who is representing that particular area at all the layers of government. And also the app shows the public when the election is going to take place as well. So for every layer of government, there's like a countdown timer. So it's designed to build a bit of anticipation for the public to know when they can ultimately get rid of those people at the ballot box, or if they like to keep them in, you know. So we're trying to build something that actually engages the public with the democratic structures. Because the reason I got in touch with you specifically, Nick, is that I think just in the last few weeks especially, I've heard you mention several times that we choose these politicians. So what we're trying to do with Mapolitic is make it a bit more obvious to the public who they actually are. So we're really proud of what we've built, actually.
No, it sounds fantastic. So first of all, is the app free?
Yes, it's completely free. It's on the App Store on Apple or the Google Play Store. And just to give anyone listening to this some reassurance, anything that's on the App Store or the Google Play Store has been thoroughly vetted by Apple or Google for any software in there that could damage your device. It's completely safe to use. It is free. There's no adverts. There's no data mining either, which is the other key thing, because one thing which has concerned me for quite a while is that companies like Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and these companies, they can effectively almost spy on you a little bit, and they sell all your data. And those companies have been fined hundreds of millions of dollars for doing so. Facebook have been fined billions of dollars for doing so. So there's none of that on our app. We do have a business model, and I'll go into that briefly if you'd like me to. But for the general public, it is absolutely free, genuinely free. When Mapolitic says free, Mapolitic means genuinely free.
It's fantastic. So So no one's got an excuse now not to download the app. My next question is, and I think it's a question you'll probably have an answer for. How do we get more politicians using it so we can track them and watch what they're doing? That's the issue. That's the big issue. How do we get them using it?
True. Well, we only launched late last year, so go easy on us at the moment. There are though already hundreds of politicians around the country using it. So there's councillors on every single county council except Derbyshire using it. There's councillors on dozens of local councils in all 4 nations of the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And there's also a couple of members of parliament appearing on Mapolitic as well. So there are quite a few politicians already using it, hundreds. But the thing is, there are, like you've alluded to, there are thousands in the country, okay? So at the moment, for most people using Mapolitic at the moment in this country, it isn't a particularly useful tool because the likelihood is their local representatives aren't yet on the site. In terms of getting them to know about Mapolitic so they choose to appear, we're doing our bit because we're doing a bit of advertising, only small scale at the moment, but we would like some more television advertising, internet advertising. At the moment, we're advertising in some local newspapers, which don't have a particularly large circulation, as you know, so it's only small scale at the moment. But if you like the concept of Mapolitic, and if you've got it on your phone, then by all means, tell your MP that Mapolitic is on your phone, because if the politician, you know this because I've heard you talk about this, Nick, the politicians want votes. So if they know that, say, even just 10 of their constituents have got the Mapolitic app on their phone, then they're going to be thinking, well, that's 10 possible votes. So hopefully that, if they know that their constituents have got the app on their phone, hopefully that will encourage them to appear on the site. And it's very easy for them to do so. It's just we built a really simple system where every elected person in the country, from Rishi Sunak to your local councillor, they've all got a Mapolitic, what we call a Mapolitic pass key, which is a small code that we can allocate to them, which can get them setting up their own account on Mapolitic. So yeah, if you know any elected representatives, tell them about the app, tell them they can contact me, and we can get their pass key sent to them.
I think I can do better than that. I think we probably need a chat off screen at the end of this. I've got quite a few ideas and some organisations you probably need to be speaking to who should be able to help with this because it fits in with their agenda as well. We need more politicians open to the public, being more accountable and being visible about what they're doing. And I think this is a great tool for that. So when we end this, don't go off. We'll have a chat off screen about some ideas. I can put you in contact with. I think it's a really, really good idea. So my next question is, where did this come from? Where did this idea? You weren't lying in bed one day going, I wish I could track my MP, and you weren't doing that.
I was sort of.
You was, right.
I was that kid when I was 13 years old. I was that geeky, precocious little kid talking to my classmates about them, trying to talk to them about the Maastricht Treaty. I was that geeky. So with me, it's always on my mind. And I remember I had a driving job, literally driving all around the country. And I always thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if I always thought, like, who's the MP around here? I wonder who that is. Because that's the kind of thing politically minded people like me think about. So I thought it'd be pretty cool if there was like a website or a mobile app where you could just tap one button and it would tell you who the MP is. And then I thought, well, you could do that for all of the layers of government, hopefully, if the data's there, which it is. And then that got my mind thinking of, like, maybe this could be a tool for the politicians themselves. So the public don't only see who it is, but the politicians themselves can use a site like that to post, just as they post on Facebook or Twitter. But obviously the only people who would ever see those posts would be the people in that area, so their constituents. And then I sort of just kept thinking about it and putting it to the back of my mind, but it kept coming up. This is quite a good idea. I should try it. I'll be kicking myself I mean, it could flop totally, but I will be kicking myself if in 20 years' time I didn't even give it a try. So we decided, me and my dad actually, he's given me a bit of money to help me with this. We have in 2020 decided to just go for it, and we paid a company who are based in Warwickshire. I'm based in Worcestershire, so we paid a company to build the app. I'm not the coder, so to speak. So we're working with another company to keep it online now.
Right. So I was going to ask you who the we is, but you've just said that it's your dad.
Yes, me and my dad, and this other company that we're working with. Yeah.
So my next question, which you may have answered because you say it's this other company, how did you figure out where all this information lay? Because if it was just about MPs, well, that was probably fairly simple. If it was just for Manchester Council, well, that information's fairly simple, but there's a hell of a lot of information on this, and it changes all the time because elections happen all the time, sometimes because of a death, because sometimes resignation. How's all this been collated and pulled together? Or is this what the company was doing and it's just far too much for you to explain?
I knew that the data for sort of ward boundaries and postcodes existed before we started making the app, because I had used a website called writetothem.com, which tells you who some of your elected representatives are if you put in a postcode. So that's just a website that I knew about. So I kind of knew what you can do with writetothem.com is then use that information that writetothem.com gives you and then write to your councillor or your MP or your devolved assembly member, etc. So I knew that information existed, and I sort of decided then to turn it on its head. So instead of being a website which allows you to communicate with your elected representatives, you can build an app that uses the same data, the same postcode data, but allows the elected representatives to sort of communicate with you and their electorate. All I needed to do to add to it was on writetothem.com, not every single layer of government is included. So police and crime commissioners aren't on there and elected mayors aren't on there. So all we had to do was add them on as well. And that was very easy because elected mayors and police and crime commissioner boundaries correspond to local authority boundaries. So for the coders, the company who's building it, they knew they could build that quite easily for us. And we've also put in a location feature, latitude and longitudinal location feature. So like I say, that's another feature of Mapolitic above and beyond what already existed had. So and we're obviously keeping track of boundary changes and things like that. So we need to give the public 100% accurate information at all times. So when there is a boundary change, the company who provides the data to us about postcode and latitude and longitude data, they are informing us, and so we're on top of that. So the public always on Mapolitic have accurate information.
Right, it seems like you're on the ball here with everything. So I think my next question will be.
Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything.
No, it sounds like you know exactly what you're doing. So my next question is, what does success look to you?
Success for Mapolitic. I'd love the Prime Minister to be using it. At the moment, if you look at Rishi Sunak's Twitter page, and you will see that he never mentions his constituency, even though it's his constituents in Richmond and Yorkshire who have given him a job. Now, I know that he has a responsibility above and beyond, so he has to talk about the Ukraine and about, government policy. But I think it's a shame he doesn't take one day of the week out to mention his constituency on Twitter. So on Mapolitic, it gives him a chance to actually directly address his constituents. So that would be one metric of success, I guess, would be to have the Prime Minister on there. Otherwise, maybe something like 1 million people would have the app on their phone in the UK. That'd be another thing. Or say 25% of every single elected representative in the country had activated their profile on there, or something like that. I haven't really set myself a clear target in that sense. We're just sort of building it organically at the moment, trying to advertise it as much as we can and get as many on as possible. Not setting out, I mean, we have big ambitions for it, but we haven't set ourselves clear sort of dates, times and things like that. I mean, we would like the United States president to be on there as well, because there's no reason why, if it works in the UK, it can't work in other countries as well. So
That's a very, very good point. Yeah.
the ultimate success would be for every person who lives in a democratic country to have at the touch of one button information about who's representing them politically. But just like some politicians choose not to be on Twitter, some politicians are going to choose not to be on Mapolitic as well. So we can't expect perfection, but we think we can grow. We think we can make this popular.
No, and like I say, you've got my full support. I think it's absolutely great. My final question would be, let's say I can't even say it now, Mapolitic is successful. What other ideas have you got in that brain of yours swirling around that you're thinking, what's my next adventure?
Even though I'm not a coder, most of my business ideas are always about, oh, that'd be a good app, even though I wouldn't have a clue how to build them. I've thought of one, and if anyone thinks this is a good idea and wants to go and build it, go ahead. I've thought of a good idea where, if you're learning language, you should be able to log onto a mobile app and have a conversation with somebody else who's learning that language. And then at the end of the conversation, you both rate each other as to whether the other person's better or worse at the language than you. And then you wouldn't know how you've been rated, but the app would build up an algorithm. And then the next time you log on, you'll be more likely to be connected with someone else who's at your level at that language. So I'm having ideas like that quite a lot. But at the moment, I'm just working on Mapolitic. I would like maybe to go into politics myself one day. That's possible. I do like our system. I mean, I heard Matt Letizia on your podcast, and I do like that guy, but he said one thing that I disagreed with and he said that the system, the political system, needs to change completely. This is where I disagree with him, because I think our system is actually close to perfect, where we can't all involve ourselves in the political process all the time because we're busy. So we delegate someone else to do all that on our behalf. So I think that's almost perfect, and then we can then get rid of that person after 4 years if we don't like what they're doing. But the only way our system breaks down is that too many people aren't engaged in that process. Because why really we built Mapolitic? I know I mentioned I would like to see who's representing certain areas when I'm driving around the country, but the real benefit about Mapolitic is that hopefully, if it works, if it becomes popular with the public, which I hope it does, it will engage the public more and ultimately encourage more people to vote and then hopefully we'll get a higher caliber of politicians. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to insult politicians here, but I kind of know your view on that. And put it this way, I'm not going to disagree too much. And I just hope that Mapolitic can go some way to engaging the public more in politics.
No, I thought you hit a very good point there. We need to remember that in a democracy, people get the politicians they deserve. We always have to take responsibility for that because we vote them in. And if most people don't vote, then how can you complain when we've got poor politicians? To get higher caliber politicians, we need to make the job more attractive, Because at the moment, who wants to be a politician? You get slated, they attack you, they go after your family. It's not about the money. We need to make it an institution that's respected again, and we'll get a higher caliber of people wanting to go into it. And then as members of the public, we need to start voting for better people. And that's the only way we're going to improve it. I agree with you. I don't want to tear down our system and rebuild it. It needs some tweaks, but every system always needs some tweaks, and that's what we need to be doing.
Can I mention one tweak that I would put forward is that one thing I've had to learn quite a lot about local democracy and things by building this app. And one thing is that if say you live in Shropshire, for instance, you have a district councillor, no, you have a county councillor, an MP, and a police and crime commissioner. So you've got 3 elected representatives in Shropshire. But if you live in London, you have got about 15, because you've got multiple members of the London Assembly. You're in a ward that's got about 3 or 4 councillors on it. You've got an elected mayor. You might have 2 elected mayors, depending on where you are in London. So people who are, depending on where you live in the UK, even England, you have a totally different amount of levers to pull democratically, which is, it's not fair. I mean, I think there should be less. I think 3 is better than 15. But the point is that everyone should have the same, really, I think. That is one little tweak I would give. I know you mentioned how we should tweak things, and yeah.
No, that's a really, really good point. Right, so my final message for everybody is download the app. I'll put a link of information and stuff like that in the description of the video, but download the app, give it a go. And the more people who sign up for it, the more people who then will sign up for it, more likely politicians will sign up for it, and it has to start somewhere. So download the app and let's get going on this.
Yes, thank you, Nick.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on my podcast.
That's all right, mate. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.